Everybody can hear me well? Thumbs? Great, all right. Welcome to you all. My name is Nathan. I'm the VP of Growth for DEPT agency, just across the hallway here. Responsible for our commercial, for our AI, for our practice. Warm welcome to you all this morning. It's a bit rainy, but I think we're gonna be fine. Introducing Alice.
So I'm Alice Anson. I'm the Director of Digital Retail Media at Nectar 360. So my responsibility is looking after our proposition, tech, sales and operations for all of our digital channels. So that's anything that uses the internet to be enabled, which is things like in-store screens, our websites, and then off-site. For any of you that don't know what retail media is, you've probably been living under a rock for the last 3 years because it is the buzzword of the moment. Basically, retail media is about connecting with shoppers across their shopper mission and utilizing the first-party data that we build from our amazing loyalty program to really kind of create those first-party audiences that connect shoppers to their most favorite brands.
Right. So maybe let's jump into it directly. First thing I think we want to touch upon is the thousands of assets that your team manages. They're all being sent into you by the brands themselves, by agencies that help the brands to create these assets, which is a wide range of statics, PDFs, videos. What is the breaking thing in the process at the moment which makes you start think about creating an AI implementation?
Yeah, so when we think about retail media, it's all around putting the right creative in front of the right customer. As you said, that is thousands of assets on an annual basis. So we work with over 900 different clients and agencies over the course of the year. And working with a brand as prestigious as Sainsbury's and Argos, we have a lot of brand guidelines that we need to make sure that we adhere to make sure that our brand is represented in the right way, and also so that our brands we work with are represented in the right way. So when you send an asset into us, there are over 130 different things that we are checking for. Currently, checking for those very, very manually. And that does mean that, human error, it is a real thing. And therefore, there are these moments when potentially there can be conflict between things. So what we have done recently is we've launched a platform which is called Nectar 360 Pollen. It's basically a unified retail media platform which will allow our brands and agencies to book, optimize, run, and measure retail media campaigns in one. And as part of that, we were trying to solve this issue of how do we create things more efficient? How do we remove the weeks of work, the back and forth that go through that? And obviously, this brand guidelines thing came to the front of mind, and we were kind of thinking, how do we do this? And that's when we came to DEPT.
Yeah. And did you ever consider outsourcing the work to like cheaper areas to make sure that there it could be done, or was automation always the plan?
So we do outsource some of our capabilities. So we work with Accenture and we have an outsourced center over there. I think when it comes to brand guidelines, it's really hard to work through, right? So you're looking for exactly the right shade of purple and orange. You're looking for exactly the right number of pixels that something looks at. And that's really hard to tell from the naked eye. And also takes a lot of training, a lot of kind of education of teams, etc. So it's extremely complicated. And I think, when we came and spoke to you guys, that was also something that you reflected. It's a really complicated piece of work. So, I think as we started talking through, we kind of came to the conclusion that it's not a single model AI problem, but multiple agents working together. So maybe for the value of the audience, you can kind of bring that together as to how you got there and the complexity that you probably found when you looked under the hood.
Yeah, so I think the complex thing is that it is a multi-agent setup, which means that we're not throwing it into one ChatGPT, LLM, and then there's an answer coming back. There's like multiple steps that we need to do throughout the process, which all need to be super accurate. The number that we're sort of looking for is like 95% above accuracy, which should be done within all the steps. So it's object detection, it's extraction of the data, then it's checking brand compliance, and all those steps need to be the best what we can. And for that, we also use all kinds of different models. So we have YOLO, for example, for the detection. We have OCR, we have the LLM of OpenAI. So for every step in the journey and every step that needs to happen throughout the process, we have a different model that is the best for what we need to do at that stage in the process. And making it a multi-agent approach, because multiple things need to happen in order, and for all those multiple steps, we need a specialized model to help us out and create that accuracy that we are looking for. Now, I think that also goes into the point, like, do you just buy something in the market and you can connect multiple SaaS products, and then there's your workflow, or is this something that you want to build in-house and fully with code, set up, and implement into the Pollen platform. Is there a consideration there?
There is a consideration, and I'll be honest, there's no right answer to this one, right? So at Nectar 360, we've got a legacy of creating amazing proprietary technology, and how we do that is we focus on the things that we're good at. We are great at customer experience, we're great at client service, that's really what we hold ourselves up for, and then we work with amazing partners across the industry to kind of really bring in that expertise, so kind of bringing that blend together is super important. I think you'll remember as well, it was a very tight turnaround in terms of our timelines. And I think that really kind of speaks to actually the pace that AI is growing and changing. Every single week there is something new coming out, there's new technology. And looking internally at ourselves, we just knew we weren't the best people to do that job. And it would just take too much time to upskill the teams and change. And that's why we kind of got this hybrid approach that we're kind of working down.
Yeah.
So obviously, we did work with you guys, which has been amazing. It's been an amazing journey. Maybe it would be great to kind of break down the stack. So what did you do? What is it actually that we've kind of built together?
Yeah, so I'll give the presentation a press, if it's going to click to the next, to show what it's doing. Should I? Oh, there we go. So this is an asset, as you see, and this sort of shows all the agents that are working together. Thank you, Will. Yeah, working together to do all the checks that need to happen. And what you see is all the sizing checks, logo checks, color checks that are appearing here, which is actually what is happening in the back in the Pollen system. What is important there to sort of break this down is to start with what was the project like. So it was a tight turnaround, but although it was a tight turnaround, we needed to start with the basis, which is what is the process of checks that we want to do? What technology are we going to use for those checks? Is there a different technology out there? Should we buy something, yes or no? And I think we quite quickly already saw that was that difficult in terms of setup and in terms of checks that need to be done. You were talking about the 120 checks. We're covering some of them now in the first implementation. We're talking about safe zones, we're talking about print, we're talking about CMYK versus RGB, we're talking about on-platform, off-platform, in the stores, and all those need to be checked on compliance. Now there's also a deviation you can make between brand checks, so brand checks from Sainsbury's, brand checks that need to happen, legal checks that need to happen, so if we comply with all the legal checks, the terms and conditions, if they are there, if they are readable, yes or no. All those things need to be done and need to be checked, and therefore, to all do that, but also hit the accuracy levels that we wanted, we were quite sure that it wasn't doable with just buying a product out of the market and then implementing it and then making it work. Also, one of the important things I think is the difference between the use of machine learning and LLM, because there was a difference there, where we looked at, can we use an LLM for all of this? Can we use different LLMs for all of this? Which actually wasn't possible because we saw that some things weren't possible within the existing setup. Funny thing there is that we are now working for, I think, 5 months together. When we started, for example, with Gemini, some things weren't possible. We therefore built it as a machine learning solution. And today, it is working. So you sort of see the speed of AI and the progression there that is sort of already hitting us in what we're doing and really showing that what the speed of AI is at the moment.
And maybe just on that one, we had quite an in-depth conversation about the color orange. So yeah, do you want to bring that to life? Because I think that's a great story.
Yeah, so the crazy thing there is what we're also doing is doing the color check on the logos, for example. So there's a gradient within the Sainsbury's logo, and we need to check if the logo color is correct, if the gradient is correct. If that's not the case, we want to give back what the color should be, and that at the moment is not correct. We also want to recognize if it's a CMYK or an RGB color setup for print or for digital, which is a massive difference, and it's quite hard to see for a person to recognize if it's good, yes or no. And we are checking that within the platform if that's correct, yes or no, which was, I think, quite a difficult step to implement. Other things that you're seeing here is that also there's things like things can't be on an asset at the same time. So if you see the top one and the bottom one, there's a nectar price, as you call it, and a nectar logo. Those can be there on the same time, which is why we're implemented a ruling engine. So not only like extracting data, looking at the data, if the T&Cs are correct, yes or no, but also then applying a ruling engine to do like yes, no, if this, then that statements, to make sure that if things are on the asset at the same time, that can be, and that we give it back to the audience. And I think maybe a final thing to note before we dive into your team and how they started using it, is the interesting thing there, is the platform itself where we've implemented it into. Because checking the asset is one thing, of course, but then bringing it back to the client or to the agency that is using it is a second thing. And what we want to be able to do is show the asset that has been provided, then show what is wrong or right with it, but also contextually tell what is wrong. So it's not the image is incorrect or the color is incorrect, but also what is incorrect about it. What should it be? Where should the position be? Where should the size be different, or where should the positioning be different? And that's what we're implementing in the platform today, to also make sure that the feedback is contextual, and the feedback is also driven by AI and made by AI. So we're not like giving back static error messages that you can't really understand, and not really sure what you need to do about it. So then maybe going back into the team and how they work on it. What was the adoption like for the team starting to work with AI in this way?
Yeah, so I think, AI is a journey for everyone. If you read the newspaper, it's going to be the downfall of human society, right? And we're never going to talk to anyone ever again. So I think it's very much about kind of going through that journey. When we think about Nectar 360, our view on AI is very much that it will give us more efficiency, which means that we can spend more time leaning into what we do as humans, which is creating amazing connections with other people, allowing us to kind of have more amazing conversations with our brands and our clients to really understand and get under the skin of their business, versus doing all the stuff, which quite frankly, a lot of this doesn't add job satisfaction to anyone, right? So I think the team have been really excited about this. So if we put it into context, when we think about the brand process today, it can take 1 to 3 weeks for us to actually confirm an asset. That is insane. When we look at this, it's around kind of maximum 90 seconds that it takes to do that. So when you work up the amount of time that is being saved and actually what that means for our teams, that is a phenomenal amount of things. And I think, one of the things that as humans, we're naturally skeptical. I'm definitely more on the skeptical side. I think one of the things that we really worked hard on was making sure that it had the right level of accuracy. So, we hit a 90% accuracy mark, which I think is phenomenal. So how did we get to that stage? And then, a lot of the asset labeling that you're seeing, and don't worry, if all the acronyms that Nathan's saying just blow your mind, they completely blow my mind too. So how did you kind of go through all of that process of asset labeling? Because that's still quite manual, right? And when you think of AI, you think everything's going to be automated.
I think this was also one of the challenging parts. If you have the technology, you need to make that work, but also then there's the data labeling to make the system understand what is good and what is not good. And when you go back into like all the years that we have checked the assets, we mostly ended up with correct assets, because that's what we were aiming for, to create correct assets and put them live. But what's really important for the system is to have incorrect assets, to make the system understand what is not correct. And of course, those assets were lacking or not there, but we needed it to train the system. So what we did for that was we implemented the Gen AI approach, and a product called Lightspeed is what we use within DEPT, mostly to generate a lot of different assets, sizes for all the media platforms out there. But we sort of misused it in a different way to create all kinds of wrong assets, I would say. So we changed the positioning of the logo slightly, or maybe we made it bigger. We changed the color. We created thousands of different assets. We labeled them with AI and Gen AI. So we created them, labeled them automatically, making the training a lot easier for us and not that manual. Although there's still a manual part, because we want to show this is incorrect, this is incorrect. We need to make the system understand. But I think also the Gen AI and Lightspeed product really helped us to create all those different assets that were needed to really train what is incorrect and make the system understand. So that means that we have now, I think it's a 91% accuracy.
Gone up 1% just in a few weeks. Love it.
We're just pushing the numbers a bit. Indeed, around 90 seconds to do all the checks that we're doing at the moment. And the cost is also quite interesting, because we mixed both LLM and machine learning. At the moment, the cost for a single asset for all the checks that we're doing is around 1 cent, which is crazy low, I would say, also given that the costs for LLMs requests are going down. But I think that the combination between OCR, LLM, is really showing that it can be dropped, and therefore I think the business case there for you is going to be massive.
Yeah, no, so it's a really strong business case for us. And I think when we start to think about, how we drive this forward and what's next for us in the future, everything that we do, and when we think about the Pollen program, everything has been around actually engaging with our clients and with our agencies and understanding what those pain points are and continuing to solve for that. So, we've already got LLM in the platform, we've got Gen AI in the platform, we're thinking about what is the role of agentic, how do we start to kind of tie everything together, but everything has to come back to us for that problem statement and what we need to solve there. Yeah. So when we think about the future, what's your vision for this tool in the future? So could it extend beyond compliance? Is there more cool stuff that we can do around brand safety, real-time optimization?
Definitely. So I think what you see here is that one of the things that we would like to increase and make better, which is if there within the asset a claim is being done, we can recognize the claim through the agent that we've built. So we recognize a claim, and always within the platform, when you make a claim, you need to deliver documentation to show that the claim is true and is correct. But at the moment, we do a check is the document there, yes or no, but we don't look at the document itself, and if it really states that it's clearly a claim that can be made. Also, there at the moment isn't a conversational layer yet where you can speak to the system to understand the error messaging, for example. So if you would say the color is incorrect and there's color codes there, or the positioning is incorrect, and you would not understand from an agency or a client perspective, you would maybe want to have a conversational message about why is it wrong, what's wrong about it, where with all the trained data and all the agents in place, it's quite easy to make that conversation happening and actually talk to the system, instead of again ending in a loop between people asking questions, getting emails back, and then we end up in the same lead time that we had before. So I think that extra conversational layer would be brilliant to add to the system.
And that's great. Yeah, so I think that's great, right? It's about how we continue to solve for problems. We've got so far. Who knows what is going to come out from AI over the next few months and years? Almost every day, as I said, there's something new. So I think definitely for us, it is how do we make this easier to understand? I think it's a great starting point, right? I don't think I've seen anything like this within the retail space. But exactly to your point, how do we make it clearer? How do we maybe start to solve for some of this stuff as well? If your logo's in the wrong place or the wrong size, can we do that for you? And can we kind of continue to kind of push the dial forward in making sure that Nectar 360 we're the easiest retail media network to work with? Yeah,
maybe to one extra point, because Pollen is a lot bigger than only on this part. Can you maybe elaborate a bit on all the other points that have been presented lately?
Yeah, so Pollen is, as I said, a unified retail media platform, so every single channel in one. It will allow you to go in there and through LLM build a media plan. You'll still be able to do it the old-fashioned way. Don't worry, our teams are not going anywhere. It will also allow you to kind of build out that audience set, so whether that's targeting to kind of store locations or to specific customers. And again, you can do that the way that we do it today, or we've got LLM built in there. And then once you flow through the asset functionality, everything goes through obviously this tool. Will kind of push out all through the relevant APIs into all of the different channels. And then all of the data comes back into the platform, which is phenomenal, right? To be able to get that measurement. Yeah. And we've got some cool stuff coming, such as iROAS and MTA. I think the really important thing to kind of note with the platform is there's a lot of cool stuff in there, but we definitely see this as complementary to our people. We don't see our people as going anywhere. I think this is more around how we, as I said, give people more time to work on the things that actually drive business forward, as opposed to kind of waste time on boring stuff.
Yeah. Do we already want to share an ETA with the audience?
Late 2025 is all I'm allowed to say, but I think I'm going to be on the DEPT stand after this. So if anyone's got any questions on this or anything, then come and ask me, and I can be bribed.
Great.
So before you get up, we've actually had a massive flurry of questions, which is super exciting to see. And we've got a little bit of time, so I think if we can have a leisurely romp through some of these. Some are in the kind of similar spaces, so I'm going to stitch a few of them together. So the first up is looking at that quite impressive for early days, 91% claim of accuracy. Firstly, is there a layer of human review on assets on top of that, because you're dealing with that 91%? And related, also a question from Nick, so thank you, Nick. Once that incorrect asset's been identified, who or what is responsible for correcting it? How are you then replacing and implementing those changes as well?
Yeah, so absolutely there is a human lens on it, that there has to be, right, to make sure that we're protecting the brand, etc. What this allows us to do, though, is really quickly get to the root of the problem. So as you can kind of see within the platform, what it will tell you is what has passed and what hasn't passed. That then allows us to have really great conversations with our clients, being super clear on what is not right, and then you can re-upload the asset and kind of go back through that loop. So we have an amazing campaign media management team who this is their bread and butter. This is what they do, getting the right campaigns out in front of customers. So this is kind of their wheelhouse, to really have those great conversations in a super transparent way, right? Because there's quite a lot of times, we've all been there, where you've got an asset back and someone's gone, that's not correct, and then you kind of have to figure out why, whereas actually now we're going to tell you.
Yeah, and maybe to add to that, talking about what the future be like this is now positioned within the Pollen platform. You could also think of it being a platform that already the agency can work with during the creation of the asset.
Absolutely, yeah.
Making sure that when they create something, they want to sort of look for all the creative things that they can do, look for okay, maybe this can happen, that can happen, and directly upload it into the system and check if it's correct, yes or no, or if it's doable. So therefore, you can really see what can I create, look at it, put it at the system, get it back, work on the feedback, and therefore make sure that also the creatively wise, it's going to be more looking better, I would say. Yeah.
We've also got a few things around the future, kind of where you see this going as well. So one question has been around other potential uses. So what we're seeing here is obviously quite brand-led ads, they're quite design-led. Do you see any future here potential for things like influencer assets or different types of content creation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we've built it together is that it can run on any asset, right? So I think you saw the example of it running on video. So there's absolutely a potential there for us to be able to run through kind of creator content, etc., TV ads, all of that kind of piece. So I think now we've got the basics right, and we've kind of established the framework. I don't think there's a limit, unless Nathan, you're going to tell me. I'm going to have an awkward conversation on stage. But I don't think there's a limit to where this could go.
No, I think, and also what would be relevant if we eventually also connect it to the performance of an asset, that we can also give that back, right? So then it's not only about brand compliance or legal compliance, but also to give advice on what works the best, yes or no. And if you maybe put your brand name in the beginning instead of at the end, in case it's a video, to make sure we also drive performance and give that back to the audience as an extra service to the clients.
Yeah, amazing stuff. And then just obviously big undertaking. You mentioned already some of the time pressures you were under. Were there any other specific challenges that you found as you've been moving through this process? Things, if everyone else here is looking to introduce agentic AIs, advice that you'd give to them. Where would you start? How would you look at that process? I'm sure probably chat to DEPT is probably one of the first answers.
We're there.
But any other kind of broad sort of advice that you'd give to our teams here?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I was going to say it's not easy, right? A couple of seconds video doesn't do the justice for the amount of work that goes in from a legal, from a DPO, from a contracting, from a product, from an engineering standpoint. So I think it's about being really clear within your business around how you want to utilize AI, being really sure on what are the different checkpoints that you have to go through to make sure that things can get signed off quickly and you can kind of unlock the potential. And then for me, it's being really laser focused on that problem statement. I think, AI is a bit of a catch-all phrase, and it can be quite nerve-wracking, and it can feel a bit too large, and you can start to have things that grow arms and legs, like, scope creep is definitely real in the AI space. So being really clear on what you want to work on, I think, is key, but that's probably more practical, I would say, in how you do it.
Yeah.
Practical.
Yeah, maybe from a technical perspective, I think that although always there's time pressure and you want to get something live as quickly as possible, that initial phase of figuring out what are you going to do, what tech will you use, is super important given the speed that we have in innovation, right? So I think the bounding boxes that you see here is something that we built with an LLM, wanted to build with an LLM, which wasn't possible then, so we did it with machine learning, and by now it's doable already. So really looking at what are we going to use, what system will we use, what is doable, but also what do we expect the LLMs to already build, when we are building the system, and work with that, knowing what is going to be new innovations upcoming, what is the roadmap. I think it's really important to create a really solid technical strategy and build from there, to not walk into a trap quite quickly and need to redo it quite quickly.
Actually, that's a really good point. So I think if we can dig a little bit deeper into that. So a question from Simon was, how do you actually manage that process with the models changing and re-releasing, updating consistently? How are you ensuring that something that is working and accurate right now isn't going to break overnight when we suddenly get new updates? And how are you looking at that process to make sure you're staying both up to date but also kind of retrofitting things too?
Yeah, so it's you can see it as a sort of headless setup. Is I think a name that everybody knows. So and it's agnostic from an LLM perspective, which means that we can quite quickly swap out an LLM and bring a new LLM in the system if we see that works better. Also, that goes back to the point, it's so innovative and it's so speedy. Every day there's something new, and we want to be able to really easily, if there's influencer content or other things, to be able to adjust quite quickly and bring new tools in. So therefore the whole setup is headless. We can connect it to every system that we want to. And all the training is done within that headless backend. So not in the LLM itself, not in tools, within the backend. That's also where the sort of gold is. That's where we all build all the logic. And that's why we can quite easily use something new, put it in and make sure it's not going to fall over due to all the sort of proprietary stuff being in a tool which can't be replaced. So vendor lock-in.
Yeah, amazing. And I think probably time for one more for Alice. I think this will be for you. So there's a lot of people, I think, in the crowd who are potentially partners, and you've touched on the fact that you're already bringing in different teams into this process. So is there kind of plans to build in suppliers and brands working with Sainsbury's to utilise the platform for future changes as well? So HFSS updates have been kind of touched upon. It's on everybody's minds who's working in the retail and food space. So will there be any kind of plans for that? And do you see that as something that you'll keep growing with the platform too?
Absolutely. As I said, we started this journey with a group of, I think it's 12 to 14 different clients and agencies really telling us what their problems are. We do a client survey every year, so we really kind of dived into that data to identify the problem statements before we started this. We've started talking through what are our capital requirements as we kind of build this platform. Over a third of the budget is reserved for user input. So we will continue to have those really active conversations with the brands and with the agencies that we work with. Because actually, that's the exciting thing, right? That's where the platform grows, where it needs to grow. And if we hold our USPs close to our heart, which are easy to use, omnichannel at its core, AI smarts, and market-leading measurement, we can't do the easy to use piece if we only look internally at what we want it to do. We really need to be connected with our core users. So absolutely, it will continue to be part of it. And as it rolls out over the next few kind of months, etc., I am all ears for any kind of feedback. So great.
Fantastic. So I think, as you can tell from the standing room only for this talk, and the most questions we've had of any panel so far, so congratulations for that. Everyone has really enjoyed this. So guys, we're running a little bit behind on the next talk, so we've probably got about 5 to 10 minutes before we'll switch over. But obviously, if there's anyone else who wants to come and chat to the team, pop up to the front, and I'm sure they'll be willing to take some questions there as well. So massive hand, so thank you very much.